is Denise Oyer. I'm the Executive Director of the Joseph A. Unanue Latino Institute here at Seton Hall University. Welcome to all. Today is our first Hablemos event. Hablemos in Spanish means let's talk. And that's what we're having, an event where you will be talking to our great speaker, who I'm about to introduce. Even though he's a man that needs no introduction. There you go.
Appreciate that.
Hablemos is a collaboration between the Unanue Latino Institute and Adelante Latino Student Organization. I want to thank some of the members of Adelante who are here with us tonight. Thank you very much for being here. And I also want to thank one of my work studies, dynamic guy, Mr. Personality, I call him, Luis Sosa Santiago, who's a senior here at Seton Hall University, pursuing a double major in diplomacy and international relations, and so on and so forth. And he put together Hablemos. So thank you very much.
Yeah, Luis.
Yeah, Luis. And now to our guest, who, as I said, needs no introduction. But let me tell you a little bit about him for those students from St. Benedict's Prep. Welcome. We're so happy you're here. Dr. Jose L. Lopez is an associate professor of physics here at Seton Hall University, who has conducted extensive research in the field of plasma physics, particularly in the subfield of microplasmas, where he's recognized as an international expert. I could go on and on and on, but I know you want to hear from him, not from me. Let's just say that for his many, awards and accolades, he's been recognized as one of New Jersey's biggest brains. I would say one of the nation's biggest brains. Here he is.
That's an upgrade.
Dr. Jose Lopez. Welcome.
She's very loud, so she didn't need a microphone like I do. Thank you for the upgrade on Nation. Wow, New Jersey.
There you go, New Jersey.
Thanks, appreciate that. Appreciate that. Okay, thank you very much to Adelante, to the Unanue Latino Center for the invitation to give this lecture tonight. I thought a lot about what I should talk about. I mean, the topic they told me to talk about is talk about the future, talk about things that young people should be thinking about right now. And that's scratched my head a little bit there, so I'm going to attempt to do that tonight and talk about a few things. So thank you everybody for coming. And part of the audience is rigged because I went to St. Benedict's Prep, which is down the street. So I know that they're here to support me, so thank you, St. Benedict's Prep, for coming down. Okay, so let me start. So one of the things that you likely realize is that there are a whole lot of people in this world, lots of people in this world. In fact, there's a very interesting website that I looked at this morning, and it keeps clicking. Every second, there's about 2 to 3 people being born around the world. So the current population right now is 7,214,154,250, and that just changed since I said that, by 2 to 3 people on every second, as I said. So it's constantly changing. That's a whole lot of people on Earth. If you look a little bit further, and you look at the population of the world, you see that these are the top 20 countries. You see that China has about 1.4 billion people. India has about almost 1.3 billion people. And then, believe it or not, our country, the United States of America, is number 3 on the list there. And we have a measly 321 million people, which puts us number 3 on that list. So for a long, long time, our country's been a leader in many of the things, whether it's been technological or many other aspects. And but things are changing, as you'll come to see. But what I'm interested in is most of you, if you're in high school right now or at Seton Hall or likely in college, you're thinking, wow, I mean, should I continue on to college? What should I do with my college degree? So those are some of the things, some of the thoughts I'd like to start a conversation with tonight on Hablemos tonight. So if you look at that population, those 7.2 billion people, about 7% of them are college educated. What I mean by that is they've gone to college and they've gotten a degree. So if you take about 7%, that means that about 483 million people around the planet, this is everyone on the planet, that has an education, that has a higher education, a college education. So that's about 150 million more people that we have in our country. If you look at that number, that raw number there, about 20% of it is in our country, in the United States. There's about 96 million people, so about, as you see there, 30% of the population in our country. But if you look at the other raw numbers, remember those two behemoth countries, China, 1.4 billion people, India, 1.3 billion people, and rapidly rising. Our country's also rapidly increasing in population. But if you look at China, they are the world leaders by currently quite a bit. They overlapped us around 2000. They have about 112 million graduates, which is a raw number that's very impressive, but that's only about 8% of their population. India, on the other hand, has about 60 million people that have a college education there, which is about 5% of the population. Now the interesting thing, bit of what I want you to think about, how the world is changing, is America up until the year 2010, around that time, around the late 2009, 2010, was by far the world leader. If you look around 2000, that's when China really started to get neck and neck. So at that point, about 18% of the world's population of graduates, that is, were graduates, college graduates from the United States. And about another 18% were from China. If you look at the current statistics, we've dropped down to about 14% of the world's college graduates, and China's still holding steady at about 18%. But at the current pace they're going, in the next 6 years in this case, from 2000 to 2020, they will be graduating about 29% of the world's college graduates. And if you project that a little bit further, into the year about 2000 and about 2020, they're about at the current pace of population growth, there'll be about 8 billion people on Earth, and roughly at that point we'll have 800 million people globally who will be college educated, where about 30% of them will be Chinese at that point, and about less than 12% will be from our country, from the United States. If you project even further, if you project into the year 2050, then at that point what will happen is there will be about a population of about 10 billion people and about 1 billion college graduates at that point, nearly that number. And China is just really increasing. So within the next 5 to 6 years, about nearly 40%, or actually above 40% of the college graduates will be from either China or India. First time that's ever going to happen, that's ever happened. Okay? So that means, if you know where logistically where India and China are in Asia, so about 40% of the world's highest educated people will be on the other side of the world. Okay? So why am I even mentioning this? Well, most of you, especially if you're in high school or if you're in college right now, are thinking of why you need an education. Well, if you look at all of the statistics, all of the information, you look at the last U.S. Census, which I was looking at for this presentation, they say that the people who have high levels of education, who have a college education, have, as you would expect, a higher level of employment. They're more employable than people who don't have higher degrees. They earn more money. They have greater wealth accumulation per year and over their lifespan. They have, believe it or not, greater health. So it turns out that the more highly educated you are, the more better your health is. They also live longer than people who are not educated. So in general, they have a higher quality of life. So, I mean, all of that right there makes sense, right? Why you want to be educated. I mean, you want to probably live a longer life. So higher education really can give you a higher level of life, and that's what we're told. But what I want to really discuss is why you should get an education. Why higher education is something you should consider moving forward. Okay? Well, the first thing that you have to realize, I just threw those numbers out. Some of you maybe aren't big into math, but really the big thing you should realize from that is that 30% of the people in the year 2014 in our country have a college education. And that number is increasing, about 2-3% within the next few years. It will keep increasing. So what you have to really look at, considering that there are 7.2 billion people right now at this moment on Earth, the fact that you are either getting a college education or have the chance to get a college education means, my first observation is that we're all very lucky that we have that opportunity. Because if you think of it, 400 million people out of 7.2 billion people, 7% of the population has that, of the world's population has that opportunity. So right there, you're just lucky. Why should you get an education? Well, I think there's two things you're told most of the time. But I want to talk about tonight the third thing, which I think is the most interesting thing, the reason you should get a higher education. The first one is, of course, to educate yourself on how the universe works. Obviously, I put that first, being a scientist. How the world works, whether it's politics or how the economy works or all of that kind of stuff. And of course, how society works, how your local community works, how your state works, how the country works, how the other countries work, how the global society works. So you go through classes, you take classes, you learn about that. The second reason, obviously, and it kind of fluctuates back and forth, the main reason a lot of people get a higher education is they want to contribute something to society, something to civilization, right? So in other words, how to get a job, right? That's kind of the main thing. And you're told, oh, yeah, you have to go to college because you need to get a job, you need to be productive, you need to do something. But what I want to talk about is, I think, the most important reason, and one of the reasons I went to college and continue in working in universities, is educate you on how to produce new and original ideas. How to progress not only yourself as an individual, but your community, and extending it further, the globe, everybody on the planet, how to promote that. I think that's the number one reason, but I think it gets kind of pushed back to maybe the third reason you should go. Okay, so I have a picture here of 3 people, okay, and 3 companies, 2 of them which are connected to the people that you see in these pictures. And I call these folks, the third reason you should go to college, you should get a higher education, I call them the progress creators. When I talk about progress, I mean people or groups that are working together to make society a little better, to progress it forward, to push it forward, to make the current situation, the current reality as it is, a better reality. Okay? So does anyone know who that first person is? Thomas Edison, yes. Okay, who's the second person? Nikola Tesla, you're good. Okay. Who's the third person? Nobody knows. Okay. Sorry, don't pound your head. I'll tell you in a second. Okay. Has anyone heard of Google? Use Google, guys? Yeah. Yes. Has anyone heard of Tesla Motors? Yeah. Okay. Has anyone heard of SpaceX? No. Okay. Well, that guy has something to do with both of those things, as I'll talk about in a minute. Okay. So obviously, I'm going to start with our local boy here. I'm going to start with our neighbor from West Orange, Thomas Edison. Okay, so what are we told about Thomas Edison? What did he invent? That's what we're told, but it's not true. It's an urban myth. It's not true at all. He did not invent the light bulb. Right? Everybody says, oh, he invented the light bulb. Okay? In fact, the man who invented the light bulb is this guy. His name is Joseph Swan. Joseph Swan is a Britishman. He's from Newcastle, England, from a little bit older than Edison, and he was an entrepreneur. He was a businessman, an industrialist. Around that time, England was going through an industrial revolution, and Joseph Swan was one of them. And Joseph Swan was an inventor, and one of the things he realized was that steam wasn't the future, as they thought in England at the time. England just happened to be sitting at the time on the greatest deposit of coal and coal in the world, so steam made sense. You take coal, you burn it, you make steam, and you move your trains, and you move your machines, and you produce your products with it. What he became fascinated with was electricity. And he started playing around with electricity, and what he realized is that certain materials give off light. So you pass electricity through them and they start to glow. We call that incandescence, right? Another way you can make light is you take a candle and you burn it through combustion, and that gives off light. What he realized was there were certain materials that, like carbon, that if you passed electricity through them, they started to glow and give off light. So what he realized was that wasn't combustion, it was something different. It wasn't burning, it was glowing. So what he did, and he happened to be in the most advanced nation at the time, was he said, well, the best thing is that if I can put it inside a glass bulb, and I can suck all the air out of it, and then I can put that piece of carbon inside that glass bulb and pass electricity through it, I can get it to glow and give light. And that's what he did. So this was actually the first light bulbs on the other side, over 3,000 miles away on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, what Joseph Swan did is he had a friend who was also an industrialist, and he was and his friend was really big into technology. So he said, "Hey Joe, can you take your lights and put them in my mansion, and decorate my entire mansion so I can show off to all my rich friends how awesome I am?" I'm just paraphrasing here. I'm sure I'm not very good with a British accent. So he said, I want to put this all over my house, all over my mansion, and to show off to my friends. And so that's what Joseph Swan did. He came up with 40 light bulbs. He put them around this guy's mansion. His name was Armstrong. And he put them around the Armstrong mansion. And he had, at that point, the equivalent in light of 1,000 candles. And that was the first house in the history of humanity that was lit by electrical light bulbs, incandescent light bulbs. Okay? And of course, what happened at that point is people would come, and it was kind of like a cool place to go if you were rich, if you were from high society in England. That was a cool place to go in Newcastle, England, and visit it and see what was going on there. Okay? Now, what Thomas Edison realized was that, yeah, those rich guys are doing pretty good, but what I want to do is I want to make sure everybody gets a light bulb. I want to make sure everybody has light inside their house. So his true genius was he took that idea, he refined it, he made it better. That's why we keep saying he invented the light bulb. He refined that idea and he came up with an incandescent light bulb. And then what he did is, and this is truly what he did invent, is he came up with a way of getting electricity to every single house, wherever you were, whether you were in New York City or you were in the smallest of cities, or smallest of towns, I should say, anywhere in the country. So what he did is he built up the electrical grid. He came up with every single piece of stuff that we take for granted right now. He came up with the electrical plug, right, the plug you plug into. He came up with the idea of how to make the electricity. Came up with the idea of transmitting it from a power plant, and then boosting it up with a transformer, sending it through power lines and wires, and then boosting it down again and so it can go to your house and get it there. Of course, he wasn't alone. He actually made a very big mistake. He liked batteries, so if you went to one of Edison's power plants, it was just a big warehouse with humongous batteries. What was realized by another man that was working actually for him, for Thomas Edison at the time, was that the best thing was not to store electricity in huge batteries that take up tremendous amounts of space, but the best thing was to make electricity on the spot, not store it, but send it through the power lines. And then people have electricity on demand. That's where on demand, the idea of on demand came up with. His name was Nicholas Tesla. He was a Serbian immigrant. He came to the United States. He started working with Thomas Edison down the street in West Orange, and he invented what is known as the AC, the alternating current generator. And what he did is he refined this tremendous idea, this great idea, this idea of not having light bulbs and electricity that just goes to certain rich people's house so they can show off to their friends, but bringing electricity to everybody. So for that reason, I think that these two men, Thomas Edison and the person who helped them refine it, Nicholas Tesla, really are progress. They really were progress creators. They really were somebody who advanced society and pushed it forward, because they decided that the inventions, the scientific discoveries, the engineering feats had to be shared not only with a certain segment of the world, but with everybody. And what both of them did about is they did that. They pushed it forward, they moved it forward, and they did that. And if you just stop and think for a second about electricity and what it's enabled, right? And in fact, Thomas Edison had this in his mind. He thought about, I hate washing clothes, washing machines, right? I hate stirring things. Think of a stirring machine. Everything electrical that you have in your house was allowed because of this progress, because of this enabling technology, this progress that was developed by a group of people. I mean, Thomas Edison headed it, Nikola Tesla worked with them, but they had hundreds and thousands of people that worked with them that make this possible. The people who laid out the cable wires, who built the factories, who built all of the electrical grid that in many cases still exists to this day. Okay? The third person who has a connection to both of these guys is Elon Musk. Okay? So none of you, I guess somebody had him on the tip of his tongue but couldn't remember. So Elon Musk is the inventor of PayPal. Has anyone ever heard of PayPal? Yeah. PayPal is a way of basically, it's basically cyber money, right? It's basically having a bank account that you can put money in there and you can pay and buy whatever you want, right? And it's mostly connected with eBay, because what happened to this man, he was 22 years old when he came up with the idea. He was a student at UPenn in Philadelphia, came up with this idea of PayPal, and then what happened is eBay came along, and everybody knows eBay, and eBay bought PayPal for billions of dollars. So this man, at a very young age, became a billionaire. Okay, now he's not the only one. There's a bunch of other guys, right? We know the guy from Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. We know Mark Cuban from the Dallas Mavericks, and a bunch of other guys, right? Some of those people who became extremely, extremely wealthy billionaires, like Mark Cuban, bought basketball teams like the Dallas Mavericks, right? And then just start jumping around on half court, telling their basketball players that they paid millions of dollars to dribble basketballs and play to score for them, right? But some people, like this guy, Elon Musk, that's why I think he's a progressive creator, a progress creator, is he took his billions of dollars and he said, well, one of the biggest problems we have 7.2 billion people, China is growing in leaps and bounds, everybody in China wants to have a car, everybody in the United States of America wants to have a car. So what he realized was that we can't continue at the current pace we're continuing at. So what he did is he basically told Ford and Toyota and all the other super car makers in the world, and he said, I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to make up an electric car. That's what Tesla Motors is all about. They have made small compact cars that run 100% batteries, not like some of the hybrid cars that Ford and Toyota and Honda and all these other guys sell, which are partially gasoline engines and partially batteries, electrical engines. He came up with a completely electric car. And he's been working on, they're still rather expensive, but he's been working on trying to sell them to the mass population. So now you have a car that uses Thomas Edison and Tesla's, the original Tesla's ideas of electricity, where you can store energy into your car and use it to run like a normal car, and you don't pollute the environment at all. So he made quite a bit of money with that. I mean, it's doing okay, that venture. But then when he decided he wasn't satisfied enough, okay, he's about 30 right now, 31 I think. What he decided right now is that NASA is falling apart. The National Aeronautical and Space Agency is not doing much, right? They're sending robots to Mars that are, just going around taking, YouTube videos and not doing much there. So he realized that there's a big market in space. So what he did is he started up SpaceX, which is basically the civilian version of NASA. And the mission of this company is to explore space, something that NASA and the Russian space agency have basically given up on. I mean, the Chinese haven't. The Chinese, as you might know, have a robot on the moon right now that's having some trouble, but they're pressing forward as a country. And Elon Musk basically has been start up his own NASA. He's actually put up some space vehicles. This is the Dragon, where he was able to bring food, unmanned, food to the space station and supplies to the space station. and he's working out of California right now. So this is a man who took his billions and billions of dollars that he made originally and keeps reinvesting it, making new companies, coming up with new ideas, and trying to progress society forward, trying to move humanity, in this case, beyond Earth. He has said in various interviews his dream is to make humans explorers of space, of everything. Humans everywhere, on every planet, all around. Make us basically Star Trek, okay? So we can move around the world. So obviously I'm a big fan of that. Okay? And then you have these guys. You have Larry Page and Sergey Brin, who are the two founders of Google. They were in graduate school at Stanford in California. They came up with this great algorithm, which is just basically a computer code that would be able to search the entire web. They came up with an idea. If I take a copy of every single web page in the world, and I store it in my computers, and then I use my Google algorithm, I can find anything. So what Google basically does is you put up a web page on your local computer that's hooked up to the internet. Google comes in and makes a photocopy of it, and they put it in their massive computer storage systems. And then what they do is they take all of the words and all the information that you have there, and they run it through their search engine, which is Google. And that was just one idea, one original idea. Since they came up with the idea of the search engine, they moved into, you name it. They moved into everything. They're moving into robotics. They came up with autonomous cars that can drive without drivers, without human drivers. They came up with Google Maps, which is basically people driving around with fisheye cameras, taking pictures of entire neighborhoods, entire countries, entire nations, and what they look like currently, and then putting it all on the web, putting it all on the internet, so that wherever you are, you can see what the world looks like, okay? And taking satellite imagery and putting it on the internet so anyone can look at it. Coming up with the possibility, as they want, of having computers interfacing with you, with humans, Google Glass, which is the next big thing that they're working on. And then many, many other things, Google Image, which finds any picture you want, basically, in the world. So I consider these guys progressors of culture, progressors of society, moving people forward, moving civilization, moving us forward. Okay? Now, probably you're wondering, well, the second observation is that science and technology, obviously, progress is only part of it. Okay? So I realize, obviously, I'm sort of biased because I'm being a scientist, being a physicist. I really like technology. I think it allows us to understand the universe a little better, so I'm very kind of biased towards it, but it's only part of the equation. It's part of the things. You can go to college, learn physics, learn chemistry, learn computer science, robotics, all these different things, and do neat things like some of these folks did in the past and are doing currently right now. But I think what you further have to realize is these guys, what I like about them, what they're doing, is that they're not thinking about themselves. When they think about wealth, when they think about income, they think about reinvesting it, not in themselves, but reinvesting it into making better things. Okay? So I think what they're doing is on the technological side, but it's along the lines of many of the other greats that former greats, some of them passed away, and some of the current greats that we have.